Hello, this is Ruslan Belov. So friends, we have several important updates from the front, and one of these updates I'd say is extremely important. It concerns Kursk Oblast, but we'll cover it in the second part of the video, because today we'll be moving from south to north and finish with an overview of Kursk and Sumy Oblasts. Let's start from the south, Kherson Oblast. Everything here is stable. Both sides are shelling each other, left to right, right to left. The front line hasn't changed, though there are raids from both our side and the Ukrainian side. But mostly these raids target the islands, so the battle here is for the islands. Again, the front line itself isn't really shifting. One more thing worth noting, yesterday 4 KABs, guided bombs, struck the center of Kherson, hitting a Ukrainian Armed Forces UAF repair base where they were fixing damaged equipment. Well, now they won't be repairing it, or at least not in that location, until another KAB arrives. Zaporizhzhia Oblast. The front has stalled here. After a rapid advance and successes where we managed to push forward by 4 kilometers north of Piatikatki, things have quieted down. Yesterday, the first serious attempt in about 1.5 to 2 weeks was made. This attempt was recorded on the Orikhiv direction. A column of our forces moved out from the village of Kopani, 12 vehicles in total, but they failed to significantly improve their positions because the column came under fire. Some vehicles were hit, the rest turned back. But I think similar operations will continue to probe the defenses and find weak spots. There's simply no other way to shift the front line here. The situation is also dynamic on the Komar direction. First, regarding Dnipro-Energia. All claims by Ukrainian experts that the UAF managed to push our forces out are complete nonsense. Even American map makers, and we're using an American map here, didn't redraw it. They didn't even mark the village as a grey zone. That is, they don't just not show UAF control here. They don't even indicate a grey zone. Because there is no grey zone, the village was and remains under the full control of the Russian army, which is why it's still coloured red. Yes, the UAF tried to push into the northeastern part and even entered the village. But their vehicle column was burned on the approaches. They lost 3 BMPs, 1 tank, 2 pickup trucks, and 3 ATVs. So, on the Orikhiv direction, our column didn't perform too well, let's say. But here, their column was destroyed. They failed to gain a foothold on the outskirts of Dnipro-Energia, and those who ran into the village, well, you can go to my Telegram channel and see what happened to them. The footage isn't for the faint of heart, so follow the link in the description, check out the footage, and tell me, is this what they meant when they said Dnipro-Energia was under UAF control? Alright, what else is happening here? Well, after a week, American map makers finally acknowledged that the village of Veseloye is under our control, though they downplay it, since part of Fedorivka is already under our control, and battles for Komar itself are expected soon. But that's not all. The most important developments are happening in the northeast, where there's a real meat grinder. While the Ukrainian armed forces are managing to hold their defenses near Bodanivka, near Kostiantynivka, they've started losing ground. Surprisingly, even Ukrainian military experts admit this. For now, the UAF is holding on to Kostiantynivka itself, and we haven't been able to take it because reinforcements keep pouring in non-stop, and it's obvious why. They're burning through a huge number of soldiers here, but refuse to retreat. Because if they do retreat, it'll be straight into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. There's simply no other option. And of course, we'll follow them there. So they're clinging to their positions tooth and nail, even though they're already fully blocked from the east. But for now, we have to call it as it is. They're managing to hold the defense. What they aren't managing is Zapadny Toretsk. For the 3rd day in a row, we're returning to this sector, and each time we note new advances. This time, it's a fairly significant push. As you can see, we're talking about progress in the pocket between Kalinov and Valentinivka. This area, covering 8.4 square kilometers, has come under our control. And that's just what the enemy's mapmakers admit. In reality, de facto, the entire territory up to the road between Kalinov and Sukabalka is either under our full control or a grey zone. At the very least, look, east of the road it's fully ours. And beyond the road, movement is already underway toward Romanivka, along the H20 highway. See, all this territory is already under our control. On the eastern side, yes, it's still a grey zone, but just 2 days ago, the UAF still had positions here. Now, as I record this video, they've fled those positions. For obvious reasons, they didn't want to risk full encirclement. Now there's no UAF presence here at all, so expect new updates on this sector in the coming days. And if we go by this map, there are still 25 square kilometers left. And in the next few days, they'll be added to our army's gains. As for Suka Balka, the village is de facto lost for the UAF. They're still clinging to the northern outskirts, but they'll undoubtedly be pushed out soon, and the entire village will come under our control. Moving on, the Azov fighters continue to have problems on the Lyman direction. Again, the map here isn't fully updated, but we have statements from Ukrainian experts. They say that yesterday our forces advanced 2 kilometers on the left bank, reaching the outskirts of Torska, and on the right bank they pushed to the outskirts of Zarekne, another large village. The total area captured in this sector is just over 4 square kilometers. And again, I'll repeat, all these positional improvements serve one goal: to secure the most advantageous positions for a subsequent assault on the city of Lyman. Ukrainian experts understand this perfectly well, which is why they wrote in their Telegram channels yesterday that the current actions of Russian forces are all preparations for storming Lyman. They say the UAF must do everything possible to prevent this. But so far, even their elite, and the Azov fighters are considered elite among them, can't handle this task. The most important success, Kursk Oblast. Remember when I told you how the UAF turned the Sviato-Nikolaevsky monastery into a fortified stronghold, taking advantage of its elevated position? They hauled in mortars, machine guns, and turned this holy site into a firing position. It seemed like they could hold this fortification for weeks. After all, it sits on a key height, has thick walls, and was practically designed for prolonged defense. But they couldn't. The assault was quick and, most importantly, successful. Taking such a heavily fortified position on a strategic hill took just 2 days. Yesterday, toward evening, footage emerged of our flag flying over the monastery. The monastery has been liberated. This means that the advance on Honor will now come not only from the north, where we've already secured favorable positions, but also from the east. The monastery is no longer an obstacle. Instead, it's now our firing position on high ground. So, the liberation of the village is approaching, and with it, the liberation of all of Kursk Oblast. And that, of course, is great news. Sumy Oblast, stalled progress. Here, the advance has slowed for now. The positions we control remain under our control, but there's no further significant progress to report. Fighting continues near Loknya and on the approaches to Yunakivka, but for now, things are bogged down there. We have to acknowledge that. Frontline summary for today. That's all for today's Frontline update. Now, a few words on politics. Ukraine extends martial law. The Verkhovna Rada, Ukraine's parliament, voted to extend martial law. Voting any other way wasn't an option. Nearly all MPs were called and ordered to attend the session. Those who didn't show up or voted against extending martial law would face pressure from the SBU, Security Service of Ukraine, writes Legitimny. The Bankova, Zelensky's office, sternly warned parliamentary factions that this vote would be a loyalty test to the government. Security forces are reportedly preparing to scrutinize politicians' business ties. This is essentially a midterm exam for Andriy Yermak in the Rada, but the real test will come in August. Right now, the odds of extending martial law and mobilization are 50-50, but insiders give only a 40% chance that Parliament will extend it in August, and 60% that it won't. Situation on the front, speculation from Alexander Sladkov. A major breakthrough in UAF defenses shouldn't be expected. A minimal success on a direction of interest could lead to a rapid reconnaissance push into Ukrainian territory, writes Alexander Sladkov. There are 2 possibilities. Either we push deep and hold in a Marine-style standoff until main forces arrive, or we start widening the breach along the front. Just speculating. I'm allowed to dream. Too bad our top generals aren't using airborne troops. Yes, a landing behind enemy lines in the direction of the main strike, which hasn't materialized yet, say to encircle Kharkiv, Dnipro, or Sumy. Some will say that with today's Yes, the situation is different now. The US tracks even our battalions deep in the rear and reports to the UAF. But something has to happen. Kyiv hasn't had any unpleasant surprises in a long time. US State Department cuts useless grants. The US State Department has cancelled funding for 139 useless grants for projects in Moldova, Armenia, Belarus, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Bulgaria, Brazil, the UK, Lebanon, Mauritania, Tunisia, and other countries. The total amount scrapped is $215 million, according to the Government Efficiency Department. Secretary of State Rubio continues to scrutinize the State Department's foreign aid programs, cancelling 139 useless grants today, totaling $215 million, according to a department statement. Among the cancelled grants were $2.4 million for countering disinformation through creative content in Belarus, $750,000 for enhancing civil society resilience and adaptation in Kyrgyzstan, $2 million for promoting democratic culture in Armenia, $2.5 million for fostering critical civic engagement in Uzbekistan, $2 million for expanding media resilience and engagement in Moldova. It's worth noting that the Department of Government Efficiency, DOG, is implementing large-scale measures to cut government spending. The department has conducted rigorous audits of other government agencies, proposing budget cuts across multiple programs and initiating mass layoffs. Earlier, it was revealed that Harvard University also lost funding. The White House reportedly sent the university a list of conditions to restore federal funding, including reduce the influence of staff and students more engaged in activism than academics, eliminate considerations of race, gender, religion, or national origin in admissions and hiring, bar applicants who support terrorism or anti-Semitism, ensure ideological diversity in every department, conduct external audits of all programs suspected of anti-Semitism or other biases. However, Harvard refused to comply. University representatives stated that the government has no right to dictate such rules. No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities teach, whom they admit or hire, or what fields they research, said Harvard President Alan Garber. In response, Trump declared that he would tax Harvard as a political organization if it continues to promote political, ideological, or terrorist ideologies. Wishing you a productive day, and I'll see you tomorrow.